a roll call. If you just say your name into the record, Henry Thayer,
Roland Benjamin.
Jason
Lavelle.
all right, Lauren and Kristen, you're both on mute, so you've got to.
Lauren Weinstock's here.
Kristen Johnson.
And I will note that the town manager, Bob Zarnetsky, is in attendance also. Approval of minutes. Did anybody get a chance yet to peruse through the March 18th minutes that Colleen sent out?
I did. It looked straightforward,
Yeah,
I thought.
yeah, I thought it was pretty much to the point. Susan Marcus isn't here, so she can't hit us up with all the grammatical stuff. Okay. So
Actually, Henry, Susan is coming in now, if you'd like to.
Okay, let's let her come in and then she can say something.
And Jason got kicked out. Jason's coming back in.
I've been here,
Hi,
but
Susan.
hi. I did have a comment on the meeting minutes.
Okay.
It's not
The
a.
walls have ears.
Well, I was here. I just wasn't part of the meeting. I just think in section 1, and I'm not looking at it right now, I just been out chasing the deer on my property because I took down all my deer fencing and they're back. So I don't have it in front of me, but in the first section, I think the last 2 points, I think it's 5 and 6. I think they should go together. The sixth one is about the BPAC that Roland and I will report on in the first business, but I think that should just be, it's not separate from 5.
Okay.
It just should be it's just one of the committees we met with. I don't think we were offering to do any data work for them, although I think that's what they hoped. Anyway, okay, that's my
So
comment.
5 and 6 will be combined in a logical.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And
Let
I'll
the record
move,
show that Susan Marcus joined the meeting at 7:10.
I'll make a motion to accept the March 25th meetings with the amendment.
Okay, can we get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the minutes for March 18th are adopted. Correspondence and public comment. Bob, do we have anything from the public?
No correspondence and no members of the public are in attendance.
Okay, so going on discussion. Item 5A, update on coordination with other committees. I had a very interesting discussion with Kristen's sister-in-law. Kristen, your sister-in-law, I met her, Jen Kruger from the Affordable Housing Committee. And she's going to, I think what she was relating to me, I think the best option is to have the affordable housing people come in for a meeting with the Economic Development Commission. Because some of the things that she was talking about, like zoning and zoning density, Bob, you know, that's right in Jay Newsom's sweet spot. So I asked her if, you know, if I gave her a bunch of information to read through, if she could contact me to see if we can get her on the agenda for the May meeting for EDC. And the funny part is Jen used to work with my wife. So we all know each other, being South Kingstown. So that's what I have to report. Does anybody else have any other reports, excuse me, about contacts with any other committees?
Well, isn't this where Roland should read through his comments on the BPAC? Isn't that appropriate now, don't you think?
Yeah, who is first of all, who is BPAC?
The Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory.
All right, good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Roland, what do you got?
So I'm going to just pull up an email or notes I had sent over to Susan after we met last Thursday. basically, it was a pretty good meeting. It was cut short a little bit because another meeting was starting at 7. But we were early on in the agenda and spent a good amount of time kind of talking about what this committee does, a smart committee does and could do. And then it was Susan shared some of those traffic incident maps that were developed last couple months ago. Basic notes that we got from them is they pull up my notes too because I can't remember who asked this. Dave asked just kind of a question about, do we have any way to measure how many people are using the bike paths? And there's a couple of sites that I don't remember if they were discussed or I was Googling them while we were meeting. But just there's some pretty low impact ways to measure traffic. Some of it's real low tech and literally counting with humans sitting there, but other ideas. I don't believe we have any real measurements, but it was something that we thought we should bring back to the meeting just to say, and see if the town has anything already that's tracking that. Then Ken asked a question about, this might actually overlap with what you just mentioned, Henry, with Jen Kruger, about things like where are our population densities and then the natural traffic routes that might connect them to other parts of town.
Yeah.
And the different and where there might be different ways that we're tracking the traffic incidents on those routes. So it's another question they brought up. And then Kateri asked about, specifically we're talking, and it's really what we were talking about when Officer Souza was here in our meeting a couple months ago, but talking about Tower Hill the speed of Tower Hill after the project with the islands in the middle of the road there. We do have some baseline data. He talked about having it's a little tricky now because there's less room to put the equipment that would measure speeds today compared to those other speeds. He did let them know that anecdotally, at least, that there was some of that the impact has been felt. The speeds have been slowed down on that section of road. So, but they were very interested in that kind of use of that technology that in the speed reporting, because now you can look at areas that might need attention, and then also measure afterwards to make sure that any interventions you've taken might have worked. They seemed interested in the idea that if there's an external group looking at data collection, or at least blessing data that's available, help them with grants. And they specifically brought up a group called Safe Routes to School, and it's a website, www.saferoutesinfo.org. I think they give grants to places that are trying to, the name says it all. And then the first thoughts were offering us up some possible sources of information. I think some of the things we already talked about. One was Rhode Island Department of Health, but specifically, I think they were suggesting there might be survey information that talked about the number of people exercising, and that might give them some indications of bike path popularity. But then, and then they brought up the hospital as well. If there's any injury information, I don't believe we would be able to get any kind of traction on getting data there. But that just, I don't think they can report that out even if they wanted to. So I have an email that I had sent to Susan about those notes, and then she added a couple points that, the grant Safe Routes to School, they anonymous.
Yeah, I didn't add very much, Roland. I thought you did a good job Um,
And you could probably chime in on this, Susan, because I think I agree with what you said. It actually was the last thing you said in your response to me was it seemed like a better way to engage other committees.
Yeah, that was the thing that sent us off. And Kirsten was supposed to join us, but she had a family emergency and she couldn't. I'm sorry she wasn't there, although we were, as Roland mentioned, we were cut off, so we wouldn't have had as much time. But I think some of the things they might have been interested in, Kirsten, were the kinds of things I think you might have been able to weigh in on. And but the whole thing, we kind of got cut off. But they were very interested in some basic things like how fast cars are going on the roads, how many sidewalks are adjacent to populations that really need them. And they were a little, let me see, how do I want to say this? There was, I think, a little bit of pushback on the idea that somehow there was a committee in town that was going to be looking at all the data and coming up with some answers and things. They didn't like that, I don't think. Ken is himself an engineer, and he said, I know how to measure things and all this kind of stuff. But I think that the discussion got better and warmer as it went, because I think they began to realize that there are some things that they would like to measure. They should be able to measure. Jen was very interested in applying to the safe roads to schools. She needed some information on bike safety stuff, because that's what she was going to be asking for. So I think if we'd been able to go on, or maybe if we were able to go back and talk to them again, I think there might be some fruitful things that could come out of that. But to Roland's point, I do think it's the right way to meet with these other committees, not to depend on any letter that Rob might have sent, with all due respect to Rob and his letter. I think it's better if a few of us go and listen in on their meeting and then are available to tell them something about what we do and try to get them to talk to us about what they might need. So that's the end of my report.
Yeah. Okay.
Then I think so. I think it was, I don't think I lived well. I know I didn't live up to my responsibility. I think I was supposed to reach out to sustainability. So I didn't take any action on that this past month.
Okay, well,
Kristen, were you going to work on that with me?
No, I was gonna do the
Oh.
bicycle one, but
Okay.
I could. I think it's probably better for us to distribute more broadly. But yeah, I think I do like this idea. I think it's probably the only way that we're going to be effective in this capacity. So
Somebody want to join me on that, and I'll make good on that this next month coming up.
Jonathan, do you know when they meet? Jonathan?
I don't.
Okay. I could,
Depending on when they meet, I could join you, Jonathan. It would depend. My schedule's a little complicated.
yeah, I'll go off to the town website and see when they meet.
if you can't, I'll do it, but I don't want to do all of them. I didn't do the last one, so you should sign me up for the next one.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else to add? Okay, hearing none. Item B, the tax calculator tool. What I wanted to do here is share with the committee the County of San Diego's website. And the reason why I want to is it's pretty advanced. And when I worked for Hewlett Packard, we developed the first iteration of this website, along with a chief information officer in the County of San Diego.
Henry,
Yeah,
before you start, can I just finish up telling people when the Sustainability Committee meets on the third Monday of each month
Thank you.
at 6 p.m.
Okay. All right. So some of the backfill for this, Rob, how do I share my screen?
There should be a green icon at the bottom of your screen. It says share screen.
All right, so I'm gonna share.
You have to open your web browser before doing that, though. It has to be open on your screen before you
Okay,
share screen.
wait, let me bring it up. Come on. Okay, there it is. And oh, what am I doing? I've got the web browser open with a website up, but I'm trying to click on the share screen and I'm not getting anywhere.
There's a little arrow next to, no, no.
You see the green icon, Henry?
No, I can't because what's happening is I'm trying to maximize. Oh, there you are. I'm trying to maximize you and
No, don't worry about the Zoom, or don't worry about the full screen. I mean,
I'm not, yeah.
Or give somebody else the web address and we'll go get it.
that works too.
All right, it's bouncing me all over the place.
So why don't you just give me the web address, Henry?
Okay, it's San Diego County.gov.
No, that's DPW. I've actually been there recently, apparently.
Okay,
San Diego County.
.gov.
Okay.
Okay,
Right here.
all right, so
I
I
assume
wanted to-
everybody's seeing this, right?
Yes,
Okay.
Okay, this website's developed quite a bit in the past 10 years. Well, one of the things that's interesting about it, that when you get into everything like permits and any statistics that they have in government, fact, it says facts, figures, and finance. What those are, when we developed that, those were developed on spreadsheets, and we used a tool called Hyperion Essbase to essentially act as the engine to put it out onto this website. And this, where I wanted to show you, I think we're all familiar with the town's website, but this is an iteration that you can get to, and it isn't that hard to do. All right, you just need some good web people. This is, I believe it's developed with IBM WebSphere. And in the background, there's a lot of stuff running. So if we want to have a further discussion on this, I made contact with somebody that used to work for me and is assigned to this account. And he's willing to share some of his notes on how to put this together. So,
Henry, I'm not quite sure what are we looking for here?
okay,
A different website for the town? I thought you were talking about a tax calculator tool.
okay. If you go over under government, the government tab, and you see over there a number of tools like facts, figures, and finance.
No,
You
I
see
don't,
that?
we don't see facts, figures, and finance.
We do now.
Oh, you do?
Okay, those, so I'm pulling them up, but I don't think you can see what I'm doing.
No,
No, Rob
you'll
is
have to
trying to
walk
get
us through the screen. You have to tell us where we're going as somebody else moves it for you.
Okay, so let's go to government, facts, figures, and finance. And let's go down to the third one, which says comprehensive annual financial report. Okay. So you can hit that, and then what it's doing is it's presenting all of the financial reports for the county of San Diego, historical and so forth, that they have out in their archives. And there are another tab that you see there on this comprehensive annual financial report is popular services, like explore the budget, find unclaimed money, revenue and recovery bills, and comprehensive financial report, customer satisfaction, change the juvenile fees, and there are more services.
It's on
that
the
are
right
available.
sidebar.
Yes, it is. It's in the sidebar. Okay, so the only reason why I did this is that it is possible for us to take what Bob wants to do and put a front end on it using a tool called Hyperion, and then be able to display it on a website.
Well,
Yeah.
I'd just like to point out that San Diego has a population of 1.41 million in 2019.
Yet the whole county has a population of like 8 million.
With a $6.5 billion budget, apparently.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
with a big budget. So, I mean,
Yeah.
this looks like a website for a very sophisticated town.
Right, but still, what they did is they outsourced. Now Prospecta has it. They outsourced all of this. You know, the county itself, they only have 8 IT workers in the county. All the rest of it is done in the back office type stuff is done by an outsourced company. So things can be proportionate. I mean, you don't have to have something this big or this complex, but you can always plagiarize, beg, borrow, and steal because it's a public document. I'm looking at one tab that says property tax apportionment reports. So they have a report finder, and you can look at that. So rather than take a whole tour through it, I wanted to bring it up and show it to you folks to show what can be done as far as, you know, making government more transparent. And I think that's, Bob, that's one thing you've wanted to do all along, and actually put out a ton of information. And the discussion we had at the Economic Development Committee about some COVID funding, remember? Hint, hint, you know, so.
So this is, you know, going over through that tab, they do have this nice little set. They have these data sets, which are sort of interesting. I was just playing with them a bit, Henry. There is something here that might be worth looking into, but this is pretty, you know, pretty labor intensive. You may be right that it's all outsourced, but they're paying for the labor one way or the other.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, now what they're doing is they're paying for the maintenance of it, not for the development, because the development.
Development had to be paid for by somebody.
Yeah, it was paid for by the county and also paid for by grants. At least that was my understanding when I sat down with the chief information officer of the county when we started this project in 2011.
To your point about recovery or rescue monies being available, yes, I think that this is this sort of activity that rescue grant funds could be used for, paying an outsourced service provider to go through, cull all of our data sets and post them to the internet so that they're useful to the public is certainly an activity that, based on what I'm reading, would be an eligible activity for those rescue funds and funds. That having said, somebody's got to design it. You know, we can't, I don't think it makes a lot of sense for us to go hire a consultant and say, please make something. We'd have to have a sense of what data sets make sense to make available to the public.
Yeah, but we could use basically what's available to us is a template of what's been extremely successful and very popular. And if you have a template, then you can take it to the next step and say, okay, popular services. what do we want to know? Explore the budget, school committee. I'm just rattling stuff off.
Sure.
All right, so my point, the whole point is of doing this is I wanted to show where this work was and what the county wanted to do. And they wanted to use technology to provide transparency. They've got some projects on the line right now that are going to put a bunch of stuff on cell phones. So you can get alerts. You can look up a bunch of data with some cell phone apps. So that's all in the ongoing mix. But as I said, Bob, I got a contact out there. They used to work for me, and he's only a phone call away. I mean, he's 3,000 miles away. But he's offered, he says, if you need any notes or anything, he's offered to help me out. Okay.
If the committee wants to put together a grant application or a grant proposal, I think that's a perfectly good thing for this committee to do. The council is going to be considering how to spend federal funds probably in the next month or two. So, any proposals the committee would like to put together on sort of using federal funds to present data, to gather data, to organize data, all of those are good things.
Yeah, and as you said right along, it's to provide transparency. Okay, I don't have much else to say about it. I just want to give a very brief overview and see if we can stimulate any kind of thought. Now, I don't
Good
know.
bring forward.
I don't know what's going on with my Zoom meeting, folks. My
We
camera's
still see
gone.
you.
You can see me. I can't see you. And I had everything set up perfectly. And Bob, now I can see you.
Good.
But that's it.
Yeah, so you've got to just expand, go to the upper right-hand corner. It says view. Choose, what do you got for view options?
Gallery.
Gallery view.
I can see Susan.
Hmm.
That's because she's made
Lucky.
noise.
Lucky you. Just choose gallery.
Yep.
It's only offering me hide video, mute my audio, stop video, and exit minimize video. Oh, there we go. Everybody's here. Isn't technology wonderful? All right, folks. Let's see what else we got on the agenda.
Can I just add a comment? That maybe one thing that this committee could do is if there is, I know that there's certainly a fair amount of grant experience in this cohort, but that does not necessarily mean that we're in a position to write grants as a committee right now, especially with the amount of coordination that takes and open meetings requirements. I'm a little concerned about what would go into that, but we could support making a case or identifying data or doing those types of things that maybe other committees or endeavors or the town council would want in thinking about the use of federal funds. Like that would be something that we could do in more of a consultative fashion, is to help identify those pieces. So maybe that is not, maybe it's a little too urgent, but that seems to me to be a particularly timely and well-suited function that we could serve, is to help streamline some of that process to clarify applications if they did need to be formulated. So that's just a thought. It's like I said, I think several of us might have done a fair amount of work in a variety of contexts with those kinds of applications and might be useful in that capacity.
Yeah.
So I will also just share that when I say grant applications, grant proposals, I'm not talking about a real full-blown grant proposal. What you're going to see at the local level is just the distribution of federal funds that have come automatically. We're not going to need to make a grant proposal in order to win a competition. And I think what the council will be looking for is a reasonably solid plan articulated in a reasonably cogent way, and that's about it. I don't think that they're going to be looking for, a 50-page proposal. They're going to be looking for a
With a budget and a,
2-page explanation of what the plan is, kind of thing.
If life could always be that good.
Yeah, it could. It is right now. There's about $9 million that are going to be available that way. So.
Phenomenal. Okay,
well, wait a minute. I mean, so maybe we let everybody think about this, but cycle back to thinking about what bits of, what issues we've found in doing this or what information we've found, so that by the time we finish this meeting, we'd have something to think about or work on outside the meeting. I don't know. If we leave it right here, nothing's going to happen between now and the next meeting.
true.
But maybe we all need to be, since we aren't in the room together, maybe we just need a little bit of time to think about it as we go through the other issues in the meeting.
Well, why don't we do this? I mean, if you have ideas, you can certainly email them to me and I can consolidate them and spread them to the rest of the committee. Bob, can we do that, or is we going to run into an open meeting thing?
So long as there's no exchange, so long as it's just compiling information, it's not a problem.
Okay, very good.
But I think it would be good to have some ideas come forward that we could hash out a little bit as a group at the end, towards the end of the meeting, if we want to do this. Okay, what's next, Henry?
What's next on the list? The next thing on the list is COVID, the COVID-19 related data for the town.
Really, there's not a heck of a lot to report. Our experience has been tracking that of the state. We're in better shape now than we were 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it looks like vaccinations, I think, hit 300,000, just over 300,000 first vaccinations done, and 500,000 total in the state of Rhode Island second vaccinations. Maybe I'll get that backwards. It makes more sense as
Yeah,
in first and 300,000 second. So, we're getting there. We're about halfway, not quite, but on the first doses, we're about halfway through the population.
what's your opinion about when we're going to be able to actually meet in person again?
Town hall is,
Still locked down here?
yep, town hall is back to full work duty station occupancy next Monday. Well, town hall employees will be reporting back to their desks as of Monday. Because we're trying to avoid conflicts with the polling place that is at town hall, and we're trying not to sort of overwhelm everybody in that first week, we're going to go 2 weeks still locked with everybody from town hall in the building, but the building will only be accessible by appointment. And then the second week of May, I'm anticipating fully opening the buildings.
Oh, that's good.
And I heard, what about things being open for the summer? I heard somebody who's in the band say that the band is going to be able to perform its Tuesday night performances outdoors on the,
I don't know the band. What is the
I
band?
don't know what it's called. It's some kind of a band that they use the field where there's a farmer's market across from by the harbor.
Okay.
Oh,
The
yeah,
Marina
yeah.
Park Wakefield
Marina
Concert
Park.
Band.
Thank you very
Ah,
much.
yeah.
Marina Park.
Marina Park.
And they're apparently going to be able to have, they just learned from town hall that they're going to be able to have outdoor performances on Tuesday nights or something.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually didn't know that, but it's consistent with the current state guidance, and it's consistent with where I think we're going to be. I think the 4th of July, the parade, the Memorial Day parade, I think all of the events that we've typically seen in the summer are likely to go forward. We will still have social distancing requirements. We'll still have mask requirements in some cases, but more or less it's summer as usual.
And what about eating in restaurants? What is the state ruling on that?
State guidance at this point is still limited seating. I don't know what that percentage is right now.
Rob,
is it-
They just made an announcement today. I'm
Yeah.
looking at it right
Great.
now.
yeah, it's basically nearly 100%
Okay.
capacity by summer. It doesn't, the
Yeah.
month of May.
As
was
beginning
big.
May 7th is 80% capacity with 3 feet
Mhm.
spacing. And as of May 28th, it's 100% capacity,
Yep.
3 feet spacing
Yeah.
for indoor dining. And then the bar areas will be indoor standing service, no plexiglass as of May 28th.
All right, that's good. Well, that's in time for Memorial Day weekend.
That's
And I
A little
think
scary,
they're
but
also,
yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
scary, if you ask me.
they're, and I think they're still talking about some pretty good numbers of vaccinations. At some point, I think I read 70% by May 19th. Does that sound like so? So at that,
Plausible.
you
Sounds
know,
plausible.
with
Yeah.
that kind of vaccination rate, they're basing it on all of that. So
Yeah, but that doesn't take into account tourists.
right, but at some point your risk is lowered
Yeah.
to significantly less than, with any kind of, I mean, those risks are always there to begin with.
Yeah.
Know, and
We've
with-
also been lagging our neighbors. So, for day tripping, Connecticut and Massachusetts and New York have been faster than we have on vaccinations. So,
Yeah, and speaking of the mask wearing, it is going to continue to be required indoors if less than 3 feet of spacing outdoors. And that's as of May 28th as well. So there'll still be some of that. And offices will be 100% capacity, 3 feet spacing indoors. Again, that's May 28th. As of May 7th, it's 80% capacity in offices.
Good.
And social gatherings will have no limit as of May 28th. And that also includes catered events, 100% capacity with no cap.
Wow.
This is from the governor's office.
Wow.
And that was, I think, Lauren, am I right? Did that just come out today?
Yeah, there was a press
I-
release today.
yeah,
It's
I
an
thought so.
announcement. Yeah. I'm looking at it. It's a grid. There's a nice little grid with all the information. You have sports, gyms, houses of worship, it's all spelled out.
So Laura, when they're talking about gyms and houses of worship, I know when I go to mass on Sundays, the pews are blocked off. Are they saying that they're going to allow that to be taken down?
So May 7th will begin 80% capacity in houses of worship with 3 feet spacing. And again, May 28th, there'll be 100% capacity with 3 feet spacing. So there might be some kind of demarcation. I mean, each house of worship might have to manage it differently depending on how their seating is arranged, but they'll have to ensure that there's somehow 3 feet spacing. But the capacity will be 80% as of May 7th and 100% as of May 28th.
Yeah.
So they'll have to figure out what is 100% capacity with 3 feet spacing when normally 100% capacity means everyone's probably like, I mean, I just think about my synagogue, everyone's squeezed in. So that's not 100% capacity if you have to have 3 feet spacing. But I think the point is that it's open, but with spacing.
So that explains. So the capacity isn't then the number that's written on the fire, the fire number on the wall. It's not that, it's what is the capacity if people have to be 3 feet apart?
I mean, that's the question. It doesn't really clarify that.
And I think they really just, when they are talking about capacity, they have to self-report, and then they have to count when it says 100%. At that point, I think that's basically lifting the restrictions from counting the people. They only need to make sure that they have 3 feet from groups.
Yeah.
So
Right, so we've talked about this around the council chambers. I think capacity is 173 in council chambers, but you couldn't possibly have 173 people and 3 feet spacing. So the de facto limit is the spacing.
Okay.
And masks will continue to be required
Yeah.
indoors.
Okay, folks. Moving on. Item D, update review of Secretary of State data from Jay, Susan, and Henry. I did send out the spreadsheet. That was the one that Brian Wagner cleaned up all the data on. I apologize for sending it out so late. I got confused between one spreadsheet and another. Thank you, Susan, for helping me. But if you get a chance, take a look at it. There's some very good data out there, and it's been normalized. So the way that the numbers are presented are pretty factual. So Brian, once again, well done. Jay, well done getting the information. Susan, do you have anything you want to add?
Well, yeah, I wonder, I mean, I know Rob is interested in this database, so I wonder, Rob, what kinds of questions you think can be asked, answered from what's in that data set? You're on mute.
So I haven't actually looked at it in a month or so, but my recollection is that it's possibly longevity. How long do firms typically last in South Kingstown? How often do we see business closures? Are they quick? You know, that sort of just duration of the businesses. I think that's interesting. One of the things that I found very interesting when I did look at it was our oldest registered entities are without a doubt the nonprofits.
Yes.
We got nonprofits going way the heck back.
Yes.
You have a pretty high mortality rate, a pretty quick mortality rate for a lot of small firms. That's interesting. I'd like to know some more about that, I think. I think that which sectors are most prominent is interesting. You know, are there more offices? Are there more insurance companies? Are there more, what's happened with each of those sectors? What's happened with some of these become sort of silly questions because the numbers are so small, but what's happened with manufacturing over the last couple of decades? That kind of thing would be interesting. Have we seen, departures or the death of firms in particular sectors? A lot of the firms, and this is an interesting thing that could be sort of puzzled through, a lot of the firms seem to be LLCs
Yes.
for the sole purpose of doing construction projects. That's interesting. What have we seen in terms of that phenomena? Can we somehow tease out sort of straw firms that are being set up solely for the purpose of a single development or a single development project? That's an interesting area of inquiry. And then just having the data set with the addresses so that you can do queries, ask folks. Jay had done, I guess it was about 5 years ago, a poll. What's your experience been dealing with the town? What's your experience been dealing with, conditions in the area? That sort of survey of businesses, and it's not a huge data set. I mean, there's 2,000 or so firms in the database. It's not a huge number. Just doing a periodic survey of those firms would be interesting to see over time. Are things getting better or worse?
That reminds me, Henry, were we supposed to pull up the survey that we sent around? Because I didn't do that. I think somebody found it on the EDC. Somebody.
Yeah, it was out there.
So we could get the survey, Rob,
Sure.
for you to see what the questions were.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Yeah, who found it, Susan, was Brian Wagner. We've got to ping him because he said, "Oh, I found this survey," in somebody's notes.
That's right. He found it in Doug.
Doug's, yeah,
Doug's notes.
yeah.
Okay. So
Do you want me to
And
ping him?
there's sort of a weird a weird meta question that comes to mind when you see all of those nonprofits using corporate forms. They're basically set up as corporations in most cases. And you're seeing the business firms, the sort of agile, quick to life and quick to die firms using LLC forms instead. So it would be interesting to know whether that's just a choice, a preference that is bigger than South Kingstown. I'm sure it is. But it seems to me that what has happened is that the corporate form of the 19th and early 20th century has gone by the wayside, except for the nonprofits that are still using the 19th century business model, which is a very interesting thing. And now we're seeing LLCs that are basically non-corporate entities. They're a tax strategy as much as anything else, being the most common form of business organization. That's interesting.
They're like light bulbs. They
Yeah,
come
they're like
on,
light-
they get really hot, then they poof, they're gone.
Yep.
Okay, Susan, anything else? No. Okay, the next item is an update on the town's 300th year anniversary. Statistics, business impact, and the town's infrastructure. What I can report on this is Joanna Esposito has asked for a meeting to start, as a kickoff meeting to the events and to the actual anniversary. She sent out one iteration of who she thinks should be on the committee. But whoever that is, Rob, what I would like to do, and I think, Larry's in the same vein, is have the council approve this. Because if we're setting up another committee, it's sort of like setting up an LLC, because it's going to come on, the light's going to go hot, and then when the thing's over with, we all go home. Any thoughts?
Yeah, the council has to set up a committee. That's
Yeah.
clear.
Okay. Then I'm going to advise Joanne to come up with something that we can present to the council. All right. And we're on other items of interest. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about?
Don't all speak at once.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to know, I'd like to go back to the question of whether we can, as a group, come up with a list of, qualitative or quantitative matters that could be put before the town council as for some progress using the federal funding. Is there, from what we've seen, can anybody think of things that would be useful? I mean, the one place where we kind of had a victory was with the GIS, with the mapping
Yeah.
of some data.
So I'll suggest the same thing that I've suggested to everybody else on a committee that I've had the chance to speak to, and that is send the ideas in. It doesn't have to be the committee speaking with one voice. If you've got an idea, we're just putting together a big, long wish list. Our wish list right now probably has about $200 million worth of possible projects. We're going to have to get it down to $9 million over years. But the fact that the list is long, is fine. There's nothing wrong with having a big, long list of possibly good ideas. So if you've got an idea, just send it in. We're maintaining a spreadsheet, and eventually that spreadsheet is going to be ranked and prioritized by the council. Maybe some staff level analysis and ranking before that, but eventually the council is going to have a list that is manageable, and they're going to have to start making decisions about how to spend those monies.
Can you tell us a little more about the criteria for?
Not really. And the reason is the Treasury Department has not come out with guidance on how the federal funds will be, or what will be eligible for expenditure through the program. That criteria won't be published until May 9th. Until then, the only thing we've got to go by is the statute itself. And the statute is very, very, very broad. There's two schools of thought in analyzing the statute. One is that the statute isn't as broad as I say it is because it specifically calls out things like broadband and infrastructure projects, particular types of infrastructure problems. So there's a project. So there's a group of folks who are saying because they've listed some, they're trying to exclude others. I don't believe that's true. I think that's a bad reading of the statute. I think the statute literally says you can spend it on anything other than pension, shoring up your public pensions. So I think what we're going to see come out of Treasury is guidance that says, so long as you can tell us what you spent it on, you're good to go.
Yeah.
But we won't know until the third week of May.
What's the figure that the state is getting?
I don't recall off the top of my head. I thought it was $245 million, but I don't recall.
Is there an effort for South Kingstown to identify issues that might be state related that are local to us?
Yes, obviously the sort of big things for the state are going to be education. They're going to be resiliency and environmental issues and just general infrastructure improvement, roadway improvements, transportation improvements. One of the things that we've talked about doing is trying to figure out how to use our local monies in a way that leverages state funds. So for example, throw some of our $9 million at bus shelters so that RIPTA has an incentive to sort of invest some money in here locally as well. So we're looking for opportunities to leverage or to partner with state agencies that we know are going to have large funds. There is a project improvement of the 138 corridor that received a federal earmark in 1990, I want to say 6. John Schaefer,
Yep.
$4 million earmark for the town or for the project. Monies have never been expended, and we've been in discussions with Rhode Island DOT about using those $12 million that have been, well, it's a complicated story, but sitting around is appropriate. And then leveraging some of the federal funds to make up for the escalation costs that have eroded that $12 million earmark.
Okay.
So you're looking at like the tips list. That's like something you look at.
We could. I mean, we haven't looked at the tip and said, we want to get DOT to focus on South Kingstown elements of the tip. We haven't done that. That's an interesting idea.
I think last time I looked at the tip, which was a long time ago, the main thing on it was Old Tower Hill Road and making it ADA compliant. So it was in a special category of the tip for ADA compliance stuff. And so that's been done now with the Old Tower Hill Road. And I don't remember anything else from South Kingstown that was in the tip.
I think Broad Rock and 138 may be in the tip. Susan, I don't recall. I haven't looked.
I don't either. Okay.
I'm thinking, I always think about Route 108 between Peacedale and Kingston.
Yeah, I don't recall a tip listed project there, but there might be. There might be.
Okay. And next on our list is the next meeting day.
Before we do that, I'm sorry,
Okay.
now I've made myself the least popular person of the evening.
How will you have it?
First time. Could we just do a moment of coordination on what we're going to do with the other committees so that we clarify that right now instead of having potentially cross talk and open meetings problems later? If we are going to, I would be delighted to follow up if that's something I could be included in with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee or how we want to do that. I mean, I guess we don't really need to do that here, but it might just be easier to clarify in a minute instead of many coordinating emails later.
I don't know, Roland, what was your feeling? I got a little bit of the sense that particularly because the meeting was cut off, they weren't keen to see us again too quickly. But I don't know. What do you think?
I think some of the input maybe that they did give, if we tried to move forward on some of their ideas, then it just opens up another reason to meet with them. But if we try to push too hard, I agree with you. I think they're closer to the bike paths than we are, and
Yeah.
we're, there's going to be some of that. Like, how do we help? Here's what we think might help. Is this something that's worth it? That's
Okay, so then I have an open meeting question. Can Kirsten, Roland, and Kirsten, we'll rope Kirsten in because she was interested and she just had an emergency and that's why she didn't come. Can we take the list that Roland
Yeah,
and the three of us meet?
yes.
Are we a sufficiently small subset of this committee that we could meet to talk about
Yeah.
that?
So I think the recent decisions coming out of the AG's office gives us reason to believe that advisory bodies, not lawmaking bodies, but advisory bodies have a little more leeway in this area than the council or the planning board or the zoning board. You're an advisory body. You're not making decisions about how to spend money. You're not making decisions. So that in itself puts you in a slightly different category than the other public bodies. And a work group that is not a majority or not a quorum of the public body in that setting, I think is fine. I think you're going to be fine. I don't see any problem or any prohibition on 3 people of a 7-member committee getting together to talk about data that they're simply or data collection methodologies that they're going to bring back as a recommendation to an advisory body to the council. I don't think you've got any problem there.
Okay, well, so then to the 3 of us, is that something we'd like to try and do sometime to figure out what, if anything, and Kirsten, because you weren't there, we didn't talk to them, and because we got cut off, we didn't talk to them about doing surveys or whatever, but I know they're interested in kind of in the whole question of what can they find out from the people who are using the path and who are interested in exercise. And so we could go back with some ideas of our own to prompt them to think about something to say back to us, I think.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Can I share a quick idea? I just crossed my mind, and I mean, it's not a simple thing, but I'm thinking about like on the Narragansett end of the bike path by the elementary school. There's a motion sensing crosswalk light. So as people approach that intersection, the lights start flashing. And I wonder if there's some way to harness
there's some data there. There's got to
the
be
number of times, because
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't tell you exactly how many people, because it could be like,
Right.
a mother and her child walking, or it could be one bicyclist, but at least you could measure how many times of the day, or like, patterns of how frequently it lights up. Maybe there's certain days of the week where it lights up more, certain days of the week where it's less lit up. I mean, it's not in South Kingstown, but it's the bike path.
Well, but there is one, Lauren,
Yeah.
there, that's called a Hawkeye, I think, and there is one that crosses 138 where the URI bike path.
Oh, you're right. Yes, that big, super
That's
big
what I was
one.
gonna
Yeah, so you could go
Yeah.
there too.
Yeah,
So you could even look at different ends of the bike path. if
right.
there's some way to get those data from this end of the bike path. So yeah, I think, there might be something built in there that you could harness. I don't know the best way to extract that information, but it's just an idea.
Yeah, well, Ken Burke would certainly know who has that information.
Yeah, I mean, it would be cool to see,
And
like
May.
you would imagine like weekends might be more busy than weekdays, or maybe like, there's sort of some kind of curve in terms of like mornings are lighter use and afternoons are heavier and then evenings get light again. I mean, times of the day, different times of the year, days where we have shorter amounts of daylight, days where we have longer amounts of daylight, and
School
all sorts of
inception,
things you could look
non-inception.
at.
It's worth talking to Rich Bourbonnais to see if a tire tube run across the path would be triggered by a bicycle. I suspect it would.
There are
Yeah.
versions of that, but that wouldn't capture pedestrian traffic.
No, it would not.
But there's other.
Rich was in this meeting that
Yeah,
we,
good.
Yeah,
he's the staffer. And I think they have done some counts of how many people use the bike path. I seem to recall rolling over some extension cord that was counting. Okay, well, that's a good idea, Lauren.
I have a question about the bike path. Is there a map of all the bike routes in the town?
Yes,
There is.
yes.
Because tourists would ask for something like that. And where is it, Susan? Do you know?
Well, you can get it at the, what do you call it? The Commerce,
Chamber?
Chamber?
Yeah,
Get it at the chamber. You can get it pretty much anywhere. It's the something O'Neill bike path and they put them all around town in the summer and they definitely have a lot at the chamber. So
okay, I'll have to stop by.
yeah. And that is one thing that the bike path people are interested in terms of spending the money, Rob. They would be interested in some signage that would help people know what you could, from this point on the bike path, you can get to this school, this library, that library, it's this far, it's, it'd be a pretty, and that's outdoor activity. You could argue that's COVID related, that's moving people around without having to be in a vehicle. And
Yeah, send an email. We'll put it on the list. It's a good idea.
Yep. Okay, are we ready to move on? We've got, our next meeting date is May 20th, 2021. If there are any agenda items that any of you would like on the list, please communicate with me or with Rob, and we'll get them have Colleen put them on the agenda. We are now on item 7, adjournment, and can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All
All
right.
right. Everybody have a great evening. And hopefully we'll be able to see each other soon.
Night, folks.
Thanks,
All right,
Henry.
good night, everyone.
night.